All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Seepersod coming to you from the campus of Binghamton University, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you to our spring 2025 Tier Talks. We started working on this back in the winter time, and here we are in the first week of June, and the date for this big event is finally here. Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of the Alumni Association. We're so thrilled that you're here. Tier Talks is part of our many lifelong learning opportunities here at Binghamton University through your Alumni Association. I'm going to bring in a very special person here in just a few minutes to talk about what it is that we have to offer, a member of our Alumni Association Board of Directors. And today we're going to be talking about food insecurity in America in the year 2025. And so here we are in what we consider the land of plenty. And it may seem very strange to some that we have such widespread food insecurity, but it's a big problem in this country right now. But the positive side of it is that we have three alumni, probably more than that, but we have three joining us here today who are actively working on addressing the problem. One who is a leading researcher in food insecurity, one who is doing some great work here in Binghamton to address the problem, and a recent graduate who had researched food insecurity during her time on campus and now is a graduate student in public health and ready to take what she learned at Binghamton and bring things to the next level. So with that in mind, I'd like to bring in a very special guest at this time. So this will be Dana West from the class of 1998. He is a member of the Alumni Association Board of Directors and chair of the association's Lifelong Learning Committee, and he'll talk a little bit more about what Tier Talks is, what we offer through the association. And Dana, thank you so much for joining us.
Steve, thanks for having me, and thanks to you and the entire team over at the university that allows us to make this happen remotely. If you recall, we've only been working on these remote Tier Talks for a couple of years, so it's really excellent to start with nothing and to invite some really terrific speakers. I think you're all going to agree that David, Alexis, and Amelia are going to have a really profound impact, I hope, to everybody joining us either today or when they view the video in the future. But, from my standpoint, the ability to pick a really excellent topic and to bring in some of our best alumni to talk about it, simple as that. There's nothing better than that. So on behalf of the Binghamton University Alumni Association and the Lifelong Learning Committee, it's my pleasure to be able to bring these really excellent programs to you, and I hope you enjoy. So I will keep it short and sweet so we can get to more interesting things. And Steve, let me just hand it on back to you. Thanks so much.
Dana, thanks so much for joining us and for the kind comments. And I just wanted to compliment you on the work that you've done with us. And so anytime that we take on a serious topic in Tier Talks and we have to go out in the alumni network and find just the right speakers, you're always very, very helpful in helping us to find the best of the best. And that's what we have to offer here this afternoon. This program is meant to be interactive and fueled by your questions. So start thinking of questions, and you can send those to us in a variety of ways. If you're watching us on Facebook or on the microsite, you can just type in your question in the comment box, and we'll be minding the questions throughout the duration of this program. From time to time, I'm going to put my email address up on the screen. In fact, I will do it right this second. So you can jot this down or screenshot it or whatever you want. It will come back up at various points during the presentation, so long as the graphic isn't overlaying items on a slide deck. We'll put this back up and send me your questions, and we will mix these in. And the format is going to be each of the three speakers having roughly 15 minutes to give a mini presentation, and we're going to save the questions all for about the last 15 minutes or so. Not a hard stop on our end at 6:30 Eastern. As long as questions come in, we'll take them, and we definitely want you to be part of the program. So it can't be done without you. Send those questions in and start as early as you want, but remember that we're going to be kind of holding them to the end just so we can keep everything more or less running on schedule. So with that in mind, I'll pull this down and we'll get ready to welcome our first of the three featured speakers. So say hello to David Himmelgreen from the class of 1983, who comes to us from the University of South Florida. I'll read a little bit about his background. He certainly can share much more about what he does. He is a professor and former chair in the Department of Anthropology and director of the Center for the Advancement of Food Security and Healthy Committees at the University of South Florida. He's a leading researcher, as I said, in the area of food insecurity, and he will set the table for us, pun intended, with the macro side of food insecurity. David, thanks so much and welcome to Tier Talks.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. I want to thank you for organizing this, as well as the Binghamton University Alumni Association and Dana, um, and my fellow panelists who are going to be speaking today. It's been a long time since I've been in touch with the university, and I really have fond memories of my time there way back when. I actually did a major in biology and anthropology, and went on for graduate degrees in anthropology at the University of Buffalo. So what I want to do today is kind of set the stage, as Steve was saying, and kind of document the problem, define what food insecurity is, um, and the relationship between food insecurity and health, and then want to talk a little bit about some of the work we've been doing at the Center for the Advancement of Food Security in Healthy Communities. So, Steve, if you could advance the slide, please. So first, definitions, and often people don't know what food insecurity is. It is in the lingo a lot more now. We hear about it in the media. I think this is especially since the COVID pandemic. Uh, but it's variously defined as a social condition of limited or uncertain access to adequate food. Um, and this can result in adverse outcomes in terms of things like growth and development, and health throughout the life course. So one of the things that is really interesting to me in doing this research over the years is that often when people think about food insecurity, they think about hunger. And certainly that is an issue. For example, there are folks in the US who experience chronic hunger, and they're definitely food insecure, and that's a real problem. But the bigger issue in the US and other industrialized countries is that food insecurity can occur without hunger, and it really focuses in when what people are consuming in terms of an energy dense diet that is devoid of a lot of nutrients. There's been a lot of talk in the academic articles and even in the media now about consumption of ultra um, an ultra refined diet, and its connections with poor health. So it's really important to know that food insecurity is associated with both with hunger and again consumption of often an ultra processed energy dense diet. Next slide, please. So when we think about food security, all right, there are a number of dimensions or requirements that need to be satisfied. First of all, there is this uh, requirement of availability, and this is basically that you have an adequate, safe, nutritious diet that is available. People have it's available where people live. So that's a requirement. The second requirement is access. Not only does that food need to be available, people need to have sufficient resources either to produce the food, or in most cases in the U.S. have the resources to purchase the food. And then there's the third dimension, which is utilization, and this is where people have the knowledge and resources uh, to procure food, to store it, to prepare it, um, and if they don't have that, they can become food insecure. And then the fourth requirement is stability, and this is that food is again safe, nutritious, socially acceptable food is readily available throughout time. And there are, for example, a lot of periods when people could be food insecure, but then are food insecure for one reason or another. For example, lots of research showing people who are on food assistance and they run out of benefits at the end of the month and they become food insecure for a while. And that can be problematic over the long term. Next slide, please. So here's some data on global food insecurity, and we can see that it's increased globally since 2019. Kind of reached a peak during the COVID-19 pandemic, declined a bit in 21, 22, but the data are actually showing that it's increasing again. So according to the 2023 data, about 783 million food insecure people throughout the world. Again, many of them are hungry or chronically hungry, but also a lot of them in, both, high income and middle income countries are also experiencing, they're not chronically hungry, but they're consuming consuming food that is not, is really inadequate. The reasons for the increase in global food insecurity is, as we all probably know, food price inflation, disruptions in supply chains, and this started during the pandemic. Climate change is an issue, and conflict. So if we think about what's going on, or what went on between Ukraine, still going on between Ukraine and Russia, and the fact that Ukraine produces a lot of grain throughout the world, that's created or increased the risk of food insecurity. Next slide. So here's some data that from the US, and basically if you look at, and this goes back to the late 90s when food insecurity was first started to be measured in the US, and we see it increasing during 2008 and 9, and that corresponds with the Great Recession we experienced then. It then declined through time, and it started to increase again in 2021. And currently, about 18% of households with children are food insecure. That's a significant number considering that the U.S. is a food-rich country, and about 13.5% of all households are food insecure. And there is concern that basically what we're hearing, I work with our major food bank in Tampa Bay, for example, but we know also data nationally is that it's inching up again, and a lot of it has to do with the cost of living increasing, and including the cost of food. So if you look at this graph, what you notice is when the economy is experiencing a recession or in decline, it tends to be this increase in food insecurity, and it especially affects households with children. Next slide. So in 2022, The Economist did a study looking at 113 industrialized countries, and the U.S. ranked 13 out of 113. Now, consider this, that of course the U.S. has the strongest economy in the world, and it is a food-rich country. So the number is not so great, being number 13 out of 113 countries that were studied. And a number of issues were identified in the study. There needs to be improvements in food availability. Again, do we have a safe, nutritious food available where people live, and do people have access to that food? Do they have the money, the resources to, in most cases, purchase that food? Another issue is sustainable food production. As probably a lot of the audience knows, increasingly we rely on food that is imported, and that's being imported from across the country or from other countries. So there are some issues around sustainable food production. And then finally, the study noted that the U.S. doesn't have a national food security strategic plan. There was a hunger summit in 2022, and they produced a really good white paper, which I think really was the beginnings of establishing or developing the food security strategic plan. But I think all of that is up in the air now, and certainly there are lots of concerns about food assistance, federal food assistance, and what might happen to that, in the near future. Also, as you could just one thing here, they have a breakout by state, so you can see New York is kind of in orange, and it's kind of mid-level, between 10 and 15%, depending where people live, of households are food insecure. Also, as expected, higher rates of food insecurity in some of the southern states, which tend to be the poorest states in the country. Next slide. So what are the barriers to food security? Low income, high unemployment, again, inadequate access to affordable and nutritious foods. People may have heard of the term food deserts, and there is an official definition of that, where there isn't, again, access to or availability or access to nutritionally safe and adequate food. Limited transportation, people don't have the transportation to get to where that food is. Social isolation, disability, all of these are risk factors for food insecurity. And some of the high risk groups include, as I said, households with children, single parent households, ALICE households. You may not be familiar with that term. It was actually coined by United Way, and they've been doing studies over the last several years. What ALICE stands for is asset limited, income constrained, but employed. So these are households that are not necessarily living at or below the poverty line, and in many cases, they're what we would consider middle income households, but increasingly they're struggling to make ends meet. And as we know from the research, often food is the first thing that's compromised. So we find high levels of food insecurity in ALICE households, and this is especially in the state of Florida, where the cost of living has increased significantly in the last few years. As expected, minority and other vulnerable groups are susceptible to food insecurity, and households below the poverty line, and believe it or not, college students from across the nation are above the national average. And in some cases, we have, depending on the students and where they come from, we have in excess of 40% of college students that are food insecure, something that we've been studying a lot here at the University of South Florida. Next slide. So the thing that I'm particularly interested in is how food is experienced, how people respond to food insecurity, how they attempt to manage it, and to also look at resilience. So the experience depends on things like how intense the food insecurity, whether or not it's chronic or seasonal, transitory, the timing in the life cycle. We know from research, depending on when the food insecurity occurs, it may have more or less impact on health. So we know, during pregnancy, chronic food insecurity can have an impact on birth outcomes. During adolescence, certainly among older adults. Other factors include social capital, or how much social support and economic support people have, agency, the ability of people to react, and again, their resilience, their ability to recover. Next slide. So we know there's a lot of research now, including research that we've conducted, that food insecurity can become embodied depending on the setting and the social conditions. There are strong associations between food insecurity and malnutrition, food insecurity and diet-related diseases and conditions, and we see higher rates of type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease among food insecure people in the U.S. compared to their food secure counterparts. There are even psychosocial impacts on anxiety, depression, and other mental health problems. Psychobiological impacts on cognitive disabilities that can develop, especially in young children, immune deregulation. And even studies now looking at the microbiome. And we did a small study on looking at the microbiomes of food insecure and food secure college students, and found differences in their microbiome. And the microbiome is really important for things like food digestion and immune function. Next slide. So the problem is, I think the literature is pointing to the fact that there are significant problems here, and that it's recognized. And there was an editorial published in JAMA Pediatrics in 2024, suggesting that food insecurity is a source of toxic stress, especially for children if they're exposed to chronic food insecurity, from birth onward. that can be a problem in terms of cognition. And as we know, those first few years of life are important for brain development. Next slide. So there is also this bidirectional relationship between diet-related diseases and mental health, and some really interesting work looking at the effects of food insecurity on these physical diseases, these physical conditions, and how that may feed into mental health problems. And that, again, it's bidirectional, so they can affect each other. Next slide. So, again, I've described the problem, the issues. It's not going away. This is certainly a concern in the U.S. in light of the fact of, we're a food-rich country and a highly wealthy country, and this has been a long-standing problem that affects different segments of the population. So in 2020, I founded the Center for the Advancement of Food Security in Healthy Communities, and we've been working on issues with community partners, food insecurity issues with community partners for several years now. Next slide. So this is some of our areas of inquiry. A lot of the work we do is translational, interdisciplinary. We have research and evaluation. We raise awareness through education. So we hold symposia, panels, and to talk about the fact that food insecurity is a problem and that it has a diverse face. It affects lots of segments of society. We report stakeholders and policymakers, and I think most importantly, we're training the next generation of researchers, leaders, and advocates in terms of our students. Our goals are to eliminate food insecurity, develop with community partners health promotion programs in terms of disease prevention, specifically diet-related chronic diseases, and management of these diseases. Next slide. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. Since the last 5-6 years, we've conducted over 20 projects. A lot of them, or most of them, are grant funded or funded through programs like the USDA or through private foundations. And these are some of the programs that we've been involved with. All of them are with community partners. We're very much community engaged. So I'm just going to describe two of them very quickly. One is the Food RX program. Next slide. So this was a program that we partnered with Feeding Tampa Bay, which is the major food bank that covers 10 counties in West Central Florida, and Ivara Health, which is a health clinic, a series of health clinics, federal health clinics. And basically what we did is we started this project during COVID, so there were a lot of challenges. And what we wanted to do is improve patients' food security through enhanced management of chronic health conditions. So a lot of the participants in the program that had type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, and in some cases they had multiple conditions. So we actually had patients come into the clinics. They screened for food insecurity. If they were food insecure, they were offered the opportunity to participate in this 18-month program. We had 330 patients enrolled in the program, and over 200 of them participated in the study. So it was a longitudinal study. We followed them over time. They were given food vouchers. They could also, so there was an on-site food pantries at the clinic, so they could get food there. And they were given food vouchers, and they could redeem food at a mobile food pantry that the food bank ran, which is called Groceries on the Go. And we followed patients through time. So next slide shows some of the key results. We saw, the major result was that the more frequent patients redeemed food, either at the clinic and or through the mobile food clinics, we saw improvements in food security status. We saw a decrease in hemoglobin A1C among patients with type 2 diabetes. We saw slight reductions in blood pressure and also reductions in stress level. We're really interested in psychosocial health, mental health issues, and there was very high client satisfaction, although they had some really good recommendations for improving the program. So this is a food as medicine programs. They're becoming increasingly popular throughout the U.S., and there's data coming in suggesting that they can improve the management of these diet-related chronic diseases. I think I could say a lot more about that, but we need to move on. And then the second example, in the next slide, is we had a USDA funded program, and we were working with a urban farm in downtown St. Petersburg in Florida, and we partnered with them, and we worked with middle schoolers, and we brought the kids out to the farm, and we also hired educators to go to the schools to teach the kids about gardening, and we really emphasized the connection between healthy soil, healthy plants, and healthy communities. And so they learned basic gardening skills, what nutritious foods were. There was a lot of taste testings going on, and I think one of the key outcomes was there was this connection between producing your own food and eating healthy food. So this was really a successful program, and we're just in the kind of writing up the final results, and there was an article about the program in this magazine published out of the UK called Futurum. So I think what's cool about this program is that we're working with youth, and that's a really important target audience. And the next slide, we had a video, but it doesn't work, which describes the 15th Street Nutrition Education Program, and it focuses in on the kids themselves and what they got out of the program. So I'm going to end there. I just want to say that, and this is a significant issue in the U.S. It's tied to health, and in essence tied to our economic well-being too, because as we know, the cost of healthcare is so high in this country. So I think you're going to hear about some really cool examples about what's going on in your neck of the woods now, of folks who are doing really, really good work in addressing food insecurity. Thanks.
Well, David, thank you so much. And it's great to see all of the work that you're doing, and even better that it's getting results, and to see those figures that you had in one of the slides that you shared most recently, that these numbers as far as blood pressure, A1C, and these different measures, that these are working. And even before all these recent happenings here in the economy with the new administration, we had seen some trends that really were not very positive in terms of the cost of healthy food going up and not so healthy food being much more affordable, and people gravitating in that direction. And over the last couple of months, it seems that gap is widened and gives us a higher potential for that problem to become even worse. But through efforts like yours, we feel things are trending in the right direction, which is always positive to see. And it's great that you shared earlier in your talk about not having really been involved with Binghamton for a while, but this was a way to kind of pull you back into the circle. And I think that's one of the great things about a program like this, is that it winds up being that reentry point for a lot of alumni like you. And through being able to do this in the virtual format, we can reach alumni everywhere. And as much as we like to bring people back to campus, and that's very important, we know everybody is kind of scattered, and it's not the easiest to get back to Binghamton. So to be able to pull speakers and audience members in virtually is great. And I checked my email, and we got a couple questions that are waiting for you when we come to that part of the show. So we'll have that in a little bit here. And as you said, the next update is going to be from here in the Binghamton area. So we'll send you backstage for a bit, and I will get that part ready as we load up the slide deck for the next presenter, and we'll be ready to go with that in just a second. So go ahead and mention that our next presenter is a member of the class of 2002. Amelia LaDolce is the Executive Director of VINES, which is short for Volunteers Improving Neighborhood Environments. So say hello to Amelia. And I can tell you, as someone who lives on the west side of Binghamton, I see the great work that this organization is doing, like on an almost everyday basis, and taking properties that are just sat vacant, really not adding anything to the neighborhood, really kind of a drain on the neighborhood in some cases, depending on the property. And these have been turned around to neighborhood gardens. And it's really been a great way to bring members of the community together. And these spaces look a lot nicer, but it is helping in its own way to address the problem of food insecurity. I know, Amelia, you're very passionate about that. So I'll turn it over to you and say welcome. And thank you so much for being with us here today on Tier Talks. Looks like you are on mute. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Shall I pull up the slide deck, or is that something you were going to do? All right. Beautiful. All right. So thank you for having me here today. So I'll get right into our organization. We got started in 2007 with just a handful of volunteers who wanted to take some empty lots and turn them into community gardens. So, you know, we recognized, you can advance the slide, that there were a lot of places in our community that look like this, food deserts that have convenience stores as really the main source of food access. A lot of folks in our community in lower income parts of Binghamton don't have their own personal vehicles. They're walking to get their food or taking the bus. And the first thing that suffers when you don't have personal transportation and it's difficult to get to the grocery store, the first thing that suffers is your access to fresh produce. Next slide, please. So we work to take empty lots, as Steve was saying, and turn them into gardens that are producing food for people. And you can see some pictures of our gardens here. These are all pictures of sites in Binghamton. Next slide. All right, so there's a lot of benefits to community gardens and urban agriculture. Some of this was already spoken about. I'm not going to go into detail here. You can, I think, folks can understand some of these benefits that go beyond just the access to food. So that is important. Next slide. And so while we started with just one community garden back in 2007, over the years, we've grown into an organization with paid staff, and we have been able to continue leveraging a tremendous amount of volunteer labor to run all of our programs. But now with just a staff of 8 folks, we're running all of these different programs and serving over 3,000 people per year. Next slide, please. So our community gardens, which I mentioned we started with, that program, we manage 22 different community gardens. And in each community garden, people can rent a raised bed. What they grow on that bed is for themselves and their families. The sites are managed collectively. We do have volunteer site coordinators who act as the supervisors for the sites with support from our VINE staff. But then all the garden members help manage the communal labor for the entire site. So when it comes to snow shoveling or mowing the lawn, our garden members chip in to help cover that labor that needs to get done. And in exchange, we give them very low plot rental fees of $20 to $30 per year. It's very affordable for folks in our community, but we also do offer a no questions asked discount, so people can pay $0. Next slide, please. So here are all of our sites across Broome County. So we've got 22 different gardens, as I mentioned, with over 500 raised beds. And we have a lot of gardens right in Binghamton, but we have expanded out to Endicott, Johnson City, and Vestal, and more. Next slide. So I want to show you some before and after so you can see what a huge impact a community garden can make in a neighborhood and how quickly it can transform a site. So this is 2 Gregory Lane on the in the first ward of Binghamton, around the Clinton Street neighborhood. And this is in 2012, before we built this community garden. We were approached by two of the neighbors who live in one of the townhouses in the back there. You can see the one with the white picket fence. Some of our community members who live back there, they reached out to us and said, hey, we want to buy this lot and turn it into a community garden, and we'll be the site coordinator. So we were able to make that happen. And I'm going to show you some after pictures, construction pictures. So next slide. This is us building the site out in 2012 in a nice rainy day. Next slide. And here is what the garden looked like just a few years later. And those are our neighbors that live behind this garden, Scott and Kathy, who've been managing the garden since it was created. And they've brought in other neighbors to help with leadership at the garden too. But they have this beautiful perennial flower garden right in the front of the site that makes this a wonderful addition to the community for everyone, not just those who are gardening there. Next slide. And then here are some of the raised beds we have on site. We've got about 25 raised beds. Next. Including some wheelchair accessible beds. So we did eventually put in a concrete pad and a couple different designs of taller beds that include ones that you can work at standing up, but you see the ones with the triangle shape, you can actually wheel under those also. So if you're working in a chair, access on all sides of your bed. Next slide. So the next thing I want to talk about is our urban farm, which is located in downtown Binghamton on 16 Tudor Street. We've got 2¼ acres of land on 16 different city lots that are contiguous with each other for the most part. There's a street in between them. I'll show you a picture in a little bit. But here we're growing food for production and for sale. We sell our produce through our farm share program, which I'll talk more about later, and then also at a pop-up stand on site. Next. So we started this in 2010. This picture is of the site in about February 2010. There were 4 houses on the initial site that we had gotten control over to build our farm initially in 2010. And this is one of them, and I want to show you a picture of what that can look like pretty quickly after those houses come down. So next. So this is about April. We're clearing the site. There's a lot of invasive species that had really taken over in the back part of the property. But you could see, when you take a house down in the city, you're left with just a lot of rubble. There's not really usable growing medium to use. But also we have concerns about lead contamination. So we bring in clean soil so that we know that we're growing safely in the urban environment. Next. And here is what the site looked like in August of the same year. So pretty quickly we were able to get this site growing food for the community. And that same year we started our youth employment program at the farm. So, a small investment can have a pretty swift and significant impact with folks who are really motivated to move a project forward. Next. And here are some pictures of that same site over the years. It is really just beautiful to see how lush an urban growing site can be in comparison to, how it looked just a short period before with all the rubble from the demolition. Next. And here's an aerial shot of the farm. This was when we were still on just our first half an acre of land. It's just 4 small city lots, but we grew a lot of produce out of that. Next. But this site was flooded 2 different times, once in 2006 and once in 2011. And it's just on the other side of the river from the highway. The highway's between us. And so it's very prone to flooding. And so the city and FEMA partnered to do buyouts in the neighborhood and bought out 12 additional properties from the original, in addition to the original 4 we had. So we expanded, we built a new hoop house, we put in solar panels to produce energy for the site. Next. And here's an aerial. I need to get an updated aerial of the site in production, but this is an aerial photo where you can see shaded a little bit darker in on the right, the original area, and then all the additional area in the yellow outline was new after the FEMA buyouts. All right, next. So at this site, we employ youth, and they help us grow food for the community. So it's paid employment. It's not just an unpaid internship. It's for high school age folks, 14 to 21. We have 3 seasons. Our summer season is our biggest part of the year, where for 6 weeks, 25 youth work on the farm. And in the spring and fall, we have 8 youth working for really close to 10 weeks at this point. They're learning all kinds of new skills, all about agriculture, food production, food justice, and they're helping grow food for over 70 families that are getting a share grown by our youth every single week. In addition to working on the farm, they also are helping us build raised beds at people's homes through our Build a Garden program. So we've been leveraging the youth and their work with us in the fall and spring to build raised beds or put together garden beds so that people can grow safely at home and can avoid lead contamination, because that is a really huge issue in a post-industrial city like Binghamton that had the majority of its housing stock built before lead paint was banned. So most urban soil in Binghamton has very high levels of lead. In addition to all the work that they're doing to help support our community and the work that we do for the community, they're also learning about financial literacy, resume writing, cooking. They're taking tours of farms, food businesses, and then also Binghamton and SUNY Broome, so they can learn about what is out there in the world and what they might be interested in adding to their path in the future. All right, next slide. There's tons of benefits to farming with young people, including just there's limited employment opportunities for youth, but in particular, limited meaningful work. A lot of work that our youth get started in is very low skill service work, and working with vines, they get to literally grow food that is nourishing people and making a difference in their lives. Tons of ways also you can connect it to what they're learning in school to make the concepts they're learning in school more concrete for them, so that they have more of a reason to care about some of the abstract things that sometimes we learn as teenagers. Next slide. So here is our 2024 crew. We always learn a ton from them, and we're really fortunate to have youth who come back every year and work in leadership roles. So actually the majority of the supervision for our youth is by other teams. So it's a great way for folks to develop their leadership skills and really find themselves and realize that they can, support other teams, that they have knowledge to give. And some of the teens that are in our program have been with us longer than some of my youth program staff. And so they're still providing knowledge and experience from previous years to those staff members. That's really valuable. Next slide. So I mentioned that they're growing food that goes out to our farm share program. So this is like a modified CSA. It's targeting low-income residents, but it's open to anyone. But really, by designing the program to make it work for everyone, it makes it better for low-income individuals and people of means. So we offer flexible payment plans. Instead of paying upfront all upfront at the beginning of the season, you can pay bi-weekly or monthly, and then we have discounts for low and moderate income customers up to 75% off, and about 60% of our members get that discount. We have different share sizes and different farms to pick from. We only produce about 80 shares, and then we buy in another 200 shares for the rest of our members. And then we distribute this to 14 different neighborhood sites, so people can pick up right in their neighborhood, and we offer home delivery as well. Next. So here's some of our numbers from 2024. We distributed over 4,200 shares in total through the season. It's a 20-week-long program. We're looking to turn this into a year-round program in the coming years. 90% of our members are saying they're learning how to prepare new vegetables, and 75% of members report that they're increasing their daily intake of vegetables. So it's different than just going to the farmer's market or going to the grocery store. You're getting a set box of produce every week, and it's staring you in the face, and you got to learn what to do with it. And so it's a real good motivator for a lot of folks, but not everybody is as adventurous as others. So we do make the program work for people of all different experience levels with cooking, et cetera. We give a lot of education and support. We also offer a swap box. So if you get a vegetable in your share 1 week and it's not your thing, you can swap it out with another vegetable. And we've provided over $45,000 in discounts last year, and sold about $92,000 in produce for other farms. So our just small nonprofit is able to have a pretty big impact for local area farms through this program. Next. And lastly but not least, we have our Green Thumb workshops. We have over 50 free workshops every year that are open to the public. All kinds of things, starting from seed starting, planning out your garden, to Ghanaian cooking. We've had Japanese cooking classes, plant-based cooking, all kinds of different things, and a lot of cool things based on whoever we have in our network that is willing to teach a class and have some expertise. We pull them in and are able to offer a really great diversity of classes. Next. And then, I will just mention briefly, for those of you who were environmental studies majors, you know Dick Andrus, who was the founder of the environmental studies program. He was also one of the founders of Vines. And when he passed, he left 2 of his properties next door to his house that he'd been gardening on for 20 plus years, and he donated them to us so that we could preserve his fruit orchard and expand it so that we can grow produce for the so we can grow fruit for the community, in particular pawpaws, which Dick was a huge fanatic about. If you ever spoke to Dick Andrus in the fall, you might have gotten a pawpaw handed to you to taste. So we're happy to preserve that legacy. Next. And in recent years, with our pretty significant and rapid expansion, because of just the huge demand for our services, we were in a church basement for a number of years, just kind of working in a less than ideal space, but that's what you do in the nonprofit world. But we're really excited to break ground in 2023 on our new office building and move in last year. It is the first net zero energy building in Binghamton. It's fully solar powered. And it's extremely energy efficient because of our use of straw bale construction. So our walls are about 3 times more insulative than traditional built to code wall, and that really reduces our heating and cooling load. So with the generation of solar energy on site, we produce as much energy as we consume. All right, next slide. And here's some pictures of it going up, and you can see, yes, there are literally straw bales in those walls. It's pretty cool. If anybody's interested in learning more, we have videos documenting the whole process on our YouTube page. All right, next. That's it for me. Here's our contact info. If anybody's interested in getting in touch, please do. Thank you so much.
Amelia, thank you so much. And the pictures really do a great job of telling the story. And I think about one of the slides you had on, and you see a boarded up house, and you think of that as being, a very obvious marker of decay and an indicator of an area that people would be staying away from. And then to fast forward to seeing actual people on the site and some real productivity there with these gardens in action. Is a great turnaround story, and it's awesome to see this happening all over the city. And it wasn't really very long ago that pretty much the only place to do these community gardens was up at Otsiningo Park, and now it's become much more accessible in terms of the all being all over the city, and then just the number of these and being in many locations. So keep up the great work, and we'll see you back in a couple of minutes. And when we have the Q&A session, we'll bring you in for that. And I'm going to go ahead and get the next slide deck loaded up here. And we're going to get ready to say hello to Alexis Valerius from the class of 2024. So not very long ago, Alexis, that you were here. And I think a lot of people probably are surprised when they hear that food insecurity exists on college campuses, Binghamton University among them. And this was something that you had studied during your time as an undergraduate. And I know you'll tell us a little bit about that and the work that you're doing now. And after you graduated, moved on to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where you're a public health graduate student. I'll let you tell your story from here, but thank you so much. It's great to have you here on the Tier Talk.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you all for tuning in today. There we go. There's the slides. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about food insecurity, specifically among college students. As some of my colleagues have mentioned already, it's a really big problem among the college population. So like I said, Steve said, I'm a current Master's of Public Health student at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where I'm focusing in on health behavior and worker health. It's a little bit different than food insecurity, but I still work closely with it. And I got my bachelor's in psychology from Binghamton and did a health and wellness minor, which is really what got me here today. Next slide, please. Oh, no.
Sorry about that. For some reason, I'm having the same problem I did with one of the earlier slide decks where it is not showing me more than 2 slides at one time. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a second, save it in another file format, and then you should be good to go because that worked for David. So that's not run into that before. It's a little unnerving, but we'll get that working. All sorts of strange things going on. So you may hear this clicking in the background. So I'll address the elephant in the room because it's been going on anytime I've been here on camera, and you've been hearing me. Something with the air system, I'm not able to make it stop. So it's a little bit annoying to listen to. I understand. It's probably gonna be burned in my head until about 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's much worse for me than anyone else. So if that matters to anyone. So I'm just waiting for your newly configured slide deck to upload here, and then you should be good to go. I'm sorry that happened. Looks like we're good here. So you want to be on slide 3, and away we go.
All right, so I wanted to start by giving a little brief overview of food insecurity, specifically in the Binghamton area, and then also among college students nationwide. So currently, about 23.5% of Broome County residents, where Binghamton is located, are being impacted by food insecurity in some way. And regarding college students, 22% of undergraduate students nationwide are experiencing food insecurity. And like was discussed a little bit earlier, that doesn't just mean that they don't have any access to food, but that number includes a variety of degrees of food insecurity. And then to highlight some of the inequities we're seeing, 54% of community college students and 40% of students from state-operated campuses, so funded by the state, are reporting that they're sometimes unable to eat because they don't have enough money for food. So although that isn't exactly the definition of food insecurity, it is a predictor, and pretty alarming numbers we're seeing there. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about my research experience while I was at Binghamton. I was on the B-Minds research team, and that stands for Binghamton Mentors for the Interdisciplinary Nutrition Distress Study. And it's a student research team of about 6 to 8 of us each year, and we're led by Dr. Lena Begdash, who I don't know if you know of her, but she is a astounding researcher right now in the nutrition field, and is doing great work. But we investigate our most recent study. We were investigating the relationship between food security, diet, mental health, and an assortment of health behaviors, everything from sleep, physical activity, self-care, things like that. But our study focus does change every single year. So we've done previous studies on the impact of food insecurity on academic motivation and success, as well as resiliency. And then I'll talk about a little bit later, their current study is looking at emotional intelligence. So a wide range of work we're doing, which is really great. But But something that's really great about this research team is we do a lot of outreach, and we're not just, looking at the numbers and collecting the numbers, but we're really getting involved in the community, both on campus and in the local community as well. Next slide. We also have a lot of presentations, and I'm sorry if you hear the dog in the background. We have a bunch of presentations and publications that we've released, which has been really great. So in the top, you see two of our most recent publications. Those are the ones I'm going to be talking about today. Those were published. And in 2023, we attended the American Physiology Summit, which was in Long Beach, California, and it was just an amazing opportunity to present our research. And we submitted 3 abstracts to that conference, and all 3 of those were selected as abstracts of distinction for the conference. So that was really exciting, and our work is really getting out there, which has been great to see. Next slide. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about how we do our research, because it is an undergraduate research experience, so a little bit different from some other research going on, and the findings. Next slide. So we use surveys to collect all of our data, and these surveys are a combination of pre-existing validated scales and measures that we compile to create a longer survey. And then we distribute that survey. People take it online anonymously, and it's open to anyone 18 years and older, college students. Most of our population is Binghamton University students, just through the way that we distribute the survey, but it is open to other college students as well. And we do that through social media, flyers. We'll go into class and recruit people to take our survey and things like that. We code our data using Excel, and then we analyze it through a correlational process using SPSS. Next slide. So to go into some of our findings, our most recent project gathered 561 responses. Some previous projects, we've had over 1,000 respondents. So this one was a little bit lower on the number, but still a great number to represent. But I wanted to break down some of our findings that we found. So regarding physical activity and health promoting activities, we found that those who were experiencing signs of food insecurity were less likely to perform personal care tasks, participate in social activities with friends and family, and also perform vigorous physical activity. Whereas food insecurity showed limited to no impact on moderate physical activity, which was a very interesting finding that we had. And we, based on previous literature, we think that people who are experiencing food insecurity, because they're typically consuming less energy-dense meals, the exercise that they are performing is typically more moderate, as they don't have maybe as much energy to produce. So they're doing things like going on walks or just doing their daily chores around the house, or whatever that may be, whereas they're staying away from more vigorous forms of physical activity, such as like going on a run or, exercising intensely at the gym. Back one more slide. Yeah, so we also found that non-white participants were more likely to experience food insecurity, highlighting that inequity there, while white participants were more likely to have better diet quality and also perform more personal care tasks. Moving on to the next one, we also looked at diet quality and self-esteem. So we saw that those not having enough food to eat felt less satisfied with oneself and also felt more like a failure. Those were key terms that we did use in the question. So that is exactly what was coming from the survey. And also those who were experiencing food insecurity, as expected, consumed more fast and prepackaged foods and less nutritious foods such as whole grains, vegetables, and fruits. And then looking at sleep quality and perceived stress, we saw that those who were experiencing food insecurity had poorer sleep quality, and this included every aspect of sleep. So the duration of sleep, their satisfaction, their ability to stay awake the next day, ability to fall asleep the night before, stay asleep at night. Every one of those factors were impacted by food insecurity. We also saw that there were higher levels of perceived stress correlated with those who had poorer sleep qualities and were experiencing food insecurity as well. And then those who consumed higher levels of fruit typically had better sleep quality as well. So those were some of our key findings there. Moving on to our next slide. I wanted to represent the cyclic loop that we were finding. So this is survey-based correlational research. So it doesn't mean that one of these factors is causing the other, but they're all intertwined and all being impacted by food insecurity. People who are experiencing it their diet quality is being impacted. The amount of physical activity they can do is being impacted. They're not participating in as much self-care activities, resulting in lower self-esteem, higher stress levels, and this is all impacting their sleep as well. So it's a very cyclic cycle that we see here occurring among college students. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the outreach that B-Minds does. As I said, this was a very influential part of my experience on the research team. So this is an example timeline of some of the outreach events that we do throughout the year. Some of the key ones are we go into a lot of classrooms at Binghamton, typically health and wellness classrooms, but we'll give presentations on our research, but also on other just general health and wellness topics. A lot of what we like to talk about is, as a college student, budgeting for groceries, how to prepare meals that are budget friendly, and things like that. We also collaborate with the local schools, middle schools and elementary schools. We went to Shenango Valley, for example, for a community night where we talked to both parents and students about nutrition, and how parents can help fuel their children, even if food insecurity might be something that they're currently dealing with. And then we collaborate with a lot of organizations on campus. Swipe Out Hunger is one of them. We go and host trivia nights so they can learn about food insecurity in our research. And then one of the biggest things we do is we have a semesterly cooking workshop where we invite students in to learn about meal prepping, and we'll usually select a breakfast idea, a dinner, and then like a healthy dessert or a snack, where we'll actually prepare the meals in front of them, teach them how to do it, and then they'll be able to sample it, and take some home for them as well. And we talk a lot about the nutritional benefits of it and just meal prepping strategies and things like that. So we really like to get involved in not only the community of Binghamton, but the campus as well. Next. And so my experience here on this research team has really been influential, inspired me to pursue a master's in public health to look at more closely the systemic inequities that are influencing our access to food, healthcare, and health education as well. And I just wanted to highlight that these undergraduate research experiences are crucial, and I think Binghamton does a really phenomenal job of getting their undergraduates involved in research at an early age. And it's really helped me get where I'm going today. But B-Minds is also still doing excellent work. As I touched on earlier, their current study is on the relationship between diet quality, diet-related behavior, such as some eating disorders, and then also emotional intelligence, with a focus on the differences between genders, and then also underclassmen and upperclassmen. So they're still doing great work getting their research published and getting out there, which is great. Thank you all for listening. I have my contact information there, and also B-Minds email if you have any other questions.
Alexis, thank you very much. And you had some tremendous opportunities when you were here on campus, in particular, to be able to work with somebody like Lena Begdash. And she's certainly one of our most prolific researchers. And I feel like I'm always seeing her quoted in one particular news story or another. And so there's always some very interesting things that she's working on. And so no surprise that she would take the lead in wanting to research something like food insecurity on college campuses, in particular Binghamton. And it's cool that you're able to be part of that during your undergraduate experience. And we're grateful that you were here with us today to share that story. And we'll bring in, at this time, as promised, David, and we'll bring Amelia back in for the much promised question and answer part of the program. And this worked out pretty well. So we got a few things that were sent to us by email and pretty evenly distributed with a number of questions for all of you. So it gives everybody a chance to participate, which is certainly what we want. So let's see, we'll go to this one right here. This is a question from Sue. It's for Amelia. So the question is, does your program partner or work with any FFA or 4-H programs in the Broome County Southern Tier area, if there are any? The experiences of gardening and growing in an urban setting and a rural setting are very different, and I can imagine there would be so much knowledge and insight to share and exchange.
Yeah, we haven't worked a ton with 4-H or Future Farmer of America programs. They are, you're right, they're mostly in more rural communities. I do know that Cooperative Extension of Broome County has a 4-H program, but they haven't really reached out to us to get involved. But that would be certainly a cool thing to do and connect our youth with kids who are in rural areas and working in agriculture, living on farms, etc. It's something we hope to do more of in the future.
Great. And our next question would be for Alexis, and I'll pull it up in my email. So this comes from Barry. He writes, great to hear about your work on campus food insecurity. It would be wonderful if you could share your work with the BU Food Pantry Advisory Committee. I'm co-chair of the committee along with Jordan Finkelstein. I'll also reach out to Dr. Begdash. So more of a comment than a question, and also good luck with your MPH program. So very great to see that. And Barry sent us another one. This is for David, and I saw, David, you had answered it in the private chat, but that just kind of stays within us, and I'll just read it out loud here just for the benefit of the audience. Great insights on your work. How did majoring in anthropology prepare you for a career focused on addressing food insecurity?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Barry. Well, I think for me, anthropology provided a very holistic perspective. As I said, I majored both in biology and anthropology, and I love both of them. But with this holistic perspective in anthropology, I really was interested in the connection between biology and social conditions. And I think anthropology provided me that really important perspective. What we refer to today a lot is social determinants of health. And I think they're critically important. And that's in part what public health does. We have a college of public health here, and we're an applied anthropology department. And we have a lot of students who are doing what we call concurrent degrees in anthropology and public health.
That's great. And I think with that, we will go ahead and wrap it up for today. And I just want to say one more time, thank you to our esteemed panelists, David, Amelia, and Alexis, for taking the time to put together all of this great content and to be here with the Alumni Network to share the great work that you are doing. And I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm sure others did watching the program today. So thanks all of you very much. We really, really appreciate it. And just a couple of closing comments, and we will wrap it up for today. We're going to take a break over the summer from the Binghamton Learning Network webinar series. So we will start that back up in September. In fact, September 16th, we'll have a program on AI and marketing. And also in October, we are working on a great webinar. And for some reason, I can't remember what it is right now, but trust me, it's awesome. And so we'll program something for September, October, and November. But I also want to put in a plug for our next Tier Talks, which is going to be in September. So Saturday, September 27th, during Homecoming 2025, we're going to have a presentation led by Dr. Jennifer Wegman, who is a 3-time graduate of Binghamton University, on the stress mindset. So everybody's stressed out these days. There's so much that is around us that makes us stressed out, and some subtle changes to our mindset and viewing stress not necessarily as a villain, but in a different way. That's going to be what Jennifer talks about at the Homecoming Tier Talks. Again, Saturday, September 27th. It's going to be at 1:30 in the afternoon in the C4 multi-purpose room. You'll be seeing much more about Homecoming, trust me, in the next couple of weeks, because we'll have a slew of messages going out. Registration for Homecoming will open in early July, and we'll be just pushing out a ton of messaging to tell you about Tier Talks and the block party and the Fall Festival and all the great things we have going on at Homecoming. So stay tuned for that. I just want to also, since this will be the last touch point until we get through the summer, check out binghamton.edu/alumni to learn about the lifelong learning opportunities that Dana had talked about at the start of the program. And one of them is put together by my co-producer on this Tier Talks program, Jen Gabriel, and that's an alumni travel program, a relatively new thing that we started up here because we know that people like to travel, they like to learn, they like to do things with Binghamton alumni. So let's bring all of that together into one. And so we had a very, very modest start, kind of trying out some things last year. And this has really taken off. There's quite a lot planned, even for the rest of 2025. And there's quite a long lineup of trips already in the works for 2026. So check out binghamton.edu/alumni. And if there's not a link right there on the homepage taking you to the travel program, it's not going to take a lot to find that. And check it out. And so different venues, both domestically and international, different price points, different types of adventures, depending on what you like. So we try to make it something for everyone, try to make it as inclusive as possible. The Alumni Travel Program is just something else that we offer you through your alumni association. So thank you again to David, Alexis, Amelia, Dana, and Jen. So for everyone, I'm Steve Seepersod, and I want to say thank you for being part of the program. And so we couldn't do a Tier Talk without you. We couldn't do it without the panelists. Certainly couldn't do it without you as the audience. So we thank you very much for being part of the program today, and we'll see you next time around.